happy Black History Month. I thought today was the perfect day to officially launch my YouTube channel because my content is really all about empowering Black people, celebrating Black culture, and of course, yapping about Black history. So I am really excited to be on this long form video journey with you guys, where I think this can become a space where we cook, eat, party, learn, and collaborate on what we really need to do in order to achieve true freedom for Black descendants of chattel slavery, whether it's in our lifetime or the next.
Yeah, we getting ready to fight. I bet y'all I'ma throw them dice. So haters best to think twice. See me, I ain't nothing nice. Woo! Woo! Woo!
I hope we nugget and bugging. I hope we nugget and bugging. Because we have entered a dangerous era here in America. Let's talk about it. I'm putting some olive oil on these little crostinis, and I'm gonna just slightly toast them. Oh shit. Slightly toast them in this cast iron. Shameless plug for a Black-owned business. I get all my cast iron skillets from Karibe. I don't know if you guys can see that. Black-owned company, amazing cast iron skillets. I have the 12-inch, I have the 10-inch. I love them. They're easy to take care of. Really high quality. Highly recommend if you were looking to upgrade your cookware, get a Karibe cast iron skillet. I will put the link in the description. So anyway, the reality is that we are in a fascist oligarchy. A fascist oligarchy is a gross concentration of money and power amongst a small group on the far right. So the long and short of it is that we are in a life or death class war, and the rich and powerful have been preparing for this fight for years. They've been training for it, gearing up for it, working toward it, while we have been blindly fighting each other. We're behind in this fight, and we need to figure out how to catch up and catch up fast. So people are trying to figure out, all right, well, what do we do about all of this? There are a lot of great suggestions out there. Buy Black, absolutely. You should be buying Black as your first step for any purchase you want to make at any time, all the time. Absolutely. People are saying, divest from these companies that hate us. Abso-fucking-lutely, right? Like, we should not be giving another dime to these companies that hate us. But what I really want to talk about is something that I think is actually a little more foundational and arguably harder to deal with. And that is our mindsets, how we think about this fight for freedom, for equality, for our rights. How willing we are to do what is necessary to be done. I feel very strongly that everybody needs to adopt what I'm calling a freedom mindset. A freedom mindset is a mindset in which there is no other option but freedom. There is no risk that we are unwilling to take. There is no consequence that is too great in order for us to achieve the lives that we deserve. That's a freedom mindset. When it comes to human nature, there are usually one of two things that spur people into revolutionary action or into having this freedom mindset. One is they naturally just feel an intense passion around something that they believe is morally right. Or two, they have no choice. Things have gotten so bad that their options are adopt a freedom mindset or die. And so that's what we're dealing with right now. I hope everybody has watched Wicked by now. I feel like it just came out at the perfect time in the reality of American life. If you haven't seen it yet, a spoiler is coming. I'm just warning you now. The Wizard of Oz is a fraud. He has no magical powers. His power comes from the fact that the people of Oz believe his lies. Who does that sound like? Our two protagonists, Elphaba and Glinda, they find this out at the same time, but they take two very different approaches to learning this information. Elphaba vows to fight the wizard despite the odds being against her, despite them actively turning all of Oz against her. Elphaba has a freedom mindset. Now, Glinda knows what Elphaba's doing is the right thing to do, but instead she decides to stick with Madame Morrible and the wizard and even assumes a position of power amongst them. She helps them hunt down her friend Elphaba. She helps them spread lies and propaganda about her and ultimately kill her. Glinda has a colonized mindset. Most people left that movie identifying with Elphaba. But the reality is the majority of us would do exactly what Glinda did. We would keep our heads down. We would make excuses. We would avoid, deny anything not to ruffle feathers and to help us maintain some semblance of normalcy. How do we know that? Well, what have we done to stop Trump? People are always like, how did people just let slavery happen? How did they just let the Holocaust happen? Like this. We're doing it right now. We think we're Elphabas, but most of us are Glindas. We think we're Junes, but most of us are Miss Lydias. We think we're Fred Hamptons, but most of us are William O'Neills. A moment of silence for this beautiful spread. Colorful, light, fresh, healthy. Do more small, everyday things to add beauty to your life. Because if we don't, who else will? So here we are in a fascist oligarchy. And the question is, are we prepared? Our survival instincts will kick in and say, don't do that, you'll get in trouble. Don't do that, it won't work. Don't do that, it's a really stupid idea. But we have to have a freedom mindset. All of that is working in opposition to freedom. I'm going to throw out some scenarios to you of different things, different strategies that we could employ to fight against fascism. I just want you to take inventory of how you respond to that. What happens internally? What goes through your mind when you hear some of these strategies? Strategy 1. Do not pay your taxes. Sit with that idea. Imagine yourself not filing your taxes, not collecting your W-2s and 1099s, not hiring an accountant, not doing your taxes yourself, just intentionally blowing past that April 15th deadline. How does that make you feel? Is that something that you would be brave enough to do? What were your first thoughts when I said that? Was it, that's scary, I don't know about that, I don't want the IRS hunting me down. Don't you know the IRS targets Black people in its audits more than any other race? You're trying to get us sent to jail. But my job is funded by taxes. What about the roads? What about social services? What about nonprofits? If any of those thoughts cross your mind, all of which are legitimate thoughts, think about what that means for your freedom mindset. Number 2, a nationwide work stoppage. Our power is in 2 things. Our dollars and our labor. What if we stop giving them our labor? We all just stopped going to work. Sit with that for a second. You, your spouse, any other adults in your household, do not go to work. Your coworkers aren't going either. Some of them will because they don't have a freedom mindset. But you are not going to go to work. What's coming up for you? What does that mean? Remember, eventually money is going to stop coming in. Articles and news segments are going to come out about how people like you and people like you are destroying the U.S. economy. Your job is going to start bribing you to come back. Maybe with more money, maybe with more benefits. The government is going to start threatening you to go back. How does that make you feel? What would you do? Was your first thought, how will we survive? That's not fair to my coworkers, or I worked too hard to get to where I am. I can't just not go to work. What do those thoughts mean for your fight for freedom? Strategy 3, mutual aid. Every neighborhood works together to grow its own food, to pool its own resources. Everybody shares. You trade with each other, you provide services to each other. Your neighbor's well-being becomes your well-being, and vice versa. If the little girl down the street falls and scrapes her knee, it is your responsibility to help fix her. You're using your Band-Aids and your peroxide. If the old lady across the street is out of medication, it's your responsibility to get it for her. Would you do that? What role would you play? What could you bring to this community? Was your first thought, nah, I'm not doing that. I have to take care of me and mine. Nah, I don't even know my neighbors like that. I don't even know my neighbors. I can't stand my neighbor across the street. I'm absolutely not doing that. What do those thoughts mean for your freedom mindset? These are real strategies. They could have real impacts, but we have to be in the frame of mind to be willing to sacrifice to get them. They aren't going to just happen for us. We have to do them, which means we have to take L's in order to make these things a reality. Are we mentally ready to do that? The first thing we have to do is stop all of the internal naysaying. It's all just fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of losing the little bit of freedom and independence and success that we have gotten so far. But fear is how fascism wins. Can you imagine withholding our taxes and telling the U.S. government, bitch, we'll pay our taxes again when abortion rights are restored across this country? When Black descendants of chattel slavery are paid reparations? When the wealthy 1% are carrying the load of the financial burdens of this country? And when criminal charges are brought on anyone in the wealthy 1% who does not pay their fair share, when we cut police funding by 50% and give that extra money to social services and things that are actually going to better the lives of United States citizens, yeah, then maybe we'll pay our taxes again, Buki. But you gotta meet some demands. I mean, we could actually make this country the land of the free and the home of the brave. We could actually make this country what it says it is. Can you imagine? But we have to have a freedom mindset. There has to be no other option but that. And until we get that, until we stop operating out of fear, fascism will always win. Let's do a little exercise, okay? Let's gauge where our mindsets are. There is no wrong answer. This will be very simple. Grab like a notebook, a pen, or a piece of paper. You could use your notes app. If you don't have pen and paper, get comfortable. This will be quick, but I'm hoping that it'll tell us a lot about ourselves. We're gonna write down 1 to 3 things that we are the most passionate about when it comes to revamping the United States and like what we really need in our lives. That you're like, this is what I think is the tippity top that America needs to focus on in order to make my life better. Just jot those down. Okay, I decided to just do 2 because there are 2 that really rise to the top for me. So I'm gonna share those with you guys. The first one is reparations for Black descendants of chattel slavery. I'm passionate about this one for a lot of reasons. One, I think it's just like ethics, bro. Like, you owe us a debt, pay it back. This country would not be where it is today if it were not for free labor from Black enslaved people. I've got actually tons, I shouldn't say tons. I've got a couple of videos up on TikTok that really go into the specifics of why Black Americans are owed reparations, down to like financially how much we invested in this country through our labor, through our blood, sweat, and tears, and we're never paid for it. Also, people are always like, you guys are always pulling the race card. You guys are always talking about race. We would love to stop talking about it. Hello? Pay us our money back and we will stop talking. We will have nothing to talk about. Stop being racist and we will have nothing to talk about. We would shut me up. Shut me up, boo. So that's number 1. Number 2 is defund police and put the cut funding towards social services and things that will make Americans' lives better. This is an obvious one. People are always like, oh, so you want to defund the police? Like, so then when you get robbed, you want a social worker to come and help you? And I'm like, no, I don't want to get robbed in the first place. That's the point of this program. That's the point of this concept, is that we are taking money from something that does not prevent crime. Policing does not prevent crime. And we are putting it toward things that do prevent crime. That's the whole point. Invest this money into healthcare, into social services, into mental health, into education, into transportation, into access to good jobs. It's common sense. It is literal common sense. And that doesn't mean that you have to immediately do away with. So I believe in abolishing police, but we are nowhere near close to creating the type of society that can handle that, right? Like, for police to just disappear tomorrow would be insane. But to take the approach of reducing the funding that goes to something that is, quite frankly, ineffective and also racist as fuck. Again, go to my TikTok. I've got the history of policing over there if you were not familiar with it. But to take that extra funding and put it towards the things that actually help reduce crime and enrich communities, oh my God, it's like fucking common sense. Nobody likes crime. Nobody wants to be out there committing crimes. Nobody wants to be the victim of crime. Nobody likes crime. Get rid of it. So those are the 2 things that I am the most passionate about. I'm passionate about them not just because Black people are owed this, but also because this is what will be great for America. Everybody will benefit from Black Americans getting reparations for chattel slavery. Everybody. Everybody will benefit from services being put into communities across the country rather than just into policing. Everybody. All right, the next part of our exercise is that underneath each of these things, we are going to write what we are willing to risk, give up, do, sacrifice, whatever, in order to achieve these things that we have written down that we have said that we are the most passionate about. This part of the exercise is looking at the things that you have written down and take inventory of, are these things enough? Will these things actually bring about the change that we are asking for? I'm asking for reparations for Black descendants of chattel slavery. Clearly, this country has not wanted to do that for over 100 and some years. So I've written down that I'm willing to protest, I'm willing to write, I'm willing to call Congress people. That's not going to do it. That's not enough. I've written down that I'm willing to spend money to lobby. I'm willing to quit my job and focus on something like this full time if I could get a plan together and a team together. I'm willing to go door to door and get people to sign petitions and things like that. Is that enough, though? That's something that we all have to think about and square with. Am I willing to do enough? And the point of this exercise is for us to really take a look at ourselves and say, do I have a freedom mindset? These are the things that I said I was the most passionate about. What am I willing to risk to make this come about? Am I unwilling to actually do the work that it takes to get these things that I say that I'm so passionate about? More to the point, am I so unwilling that I could actually be a hindrance to the progress of achieving these things? Am I so resistant to really going all out for these things that I actually could end up being a challenge to progress that someone else is trying to make on these topics? These are things that we have to analyze. These are things that we have to think about. Because many of us value our comfort more than we value our freedom. A prime example is there was something going around, you probably saw it, January 19th through 26th, do not log into any Meta apps. This is a very simple ask. Don't log in. They want to be fascist and cutesy. Don't log in. Don't give them no clicks, no views, no nothing. Don't log in for 1 week. There were people who were 100% on board, ready to do it. But there were a ton of other people in the comments talking about, oh, what do you think that's going to do? I'm still going to log in. I'm just not going to click on any ads. No, this is what they want. They want us to lose our community. Don't log in for a week. That's it. It was not a hard ask, but there was so much dissent, so much we can't, so much naysaying, so much complaining, so many alternative ideas, so many think pieces. Just fall in line. You know why these Republicans are winning? Because they fall the fuck in line. Someone sets a plan and they follow it. That's it. That's it. We are almost too smart for our own good, almost too diverse for our own good. Always have a new thought, a difference of opinion, another perspective. Sometimes we just have to fall in line. And it's discouraging that we have not been able to do that. And we can't even do it on something as simple as don't log in to an app for a week. I talked about this on TikTok, but the Montgomery bus boycott, baby, that lasted for a year. A year. Black people in Montgomery, Alabama were not taking the bus. A year. In 1955, bus was a primary mode of transportation back then. So people were going to work walking. People were can you imagine walking today? Most of us don't even know how to walk more than a mile. Hell, a mile is a lot. Can you imagine? Walking everywhere, to the store, to your family's house, to your friend's house, to work, back home. They were walking They were arranging carpools for each other. So somebody was using up their gas and their car and their time to drive people here, there, and everywhere. Black taxi drivers were lowering their prices to 10 cents. The cost of the bus was around 10 cents back then. They were lowering their prices to the cost of the bus so that low-income black people who normally took the bus would be able to afford the taxi instead. Otherwise, you're giving them no choice. You're telling them, you can't take the bus, but I'm not going to give you another option. No, they gave them another option. Black taxi drivers were taking a hit to their income to make sure that people could get to where they needed to go and not take the bus. Everybody was taking L's. It was inconvenient for everybody, but they did it. And they did it for over a year. You think we're ready for a revolution? People always say things like, oh, we are not our ancestors. We damn sure are not. We are not as driven. We are not as sacrificial. We are not as resilient. We are not as communal. We damn sure are not. And it's a shame. It's a shame. So for me, I think the work really begins internally. Before we can do any of these really grandiose, revolutionary, amazing things, we have to start with ourselves, our freedom mindset. Are we willing to just get in line? Are we willing to buy black? Are we willing to divest from these companies that hate us? Are we willing to start challenging ourselves when we feel that internal opposition to an idea that could be beneficial? Are we willing to check that and say, wait a minute, am I just operating out of fear? Am I saying no to a good thing because it's going to be hard, or because it's going to be uncomfortable, or because it's going to force me to have to give up something that I want? We got to check that. We are all starting somewhere. So, if you are super resistant to this, that's okay. If you just want to get better, that is important. Stick with this. Keep doing this kind of work. Keep thinking through how you can develop a freedom mindset. We'll talk about that more here, but that is the work right now. If you are comfortable with it, I would love for you guys to share what your 1 to 3 things are that you are the most passionate about. I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys content and talking about the things that really enrich and matter to your lives. So I would love for you guys to share that. If you are also willing to share the things that you're willing to risk, that would also be amazing, but not required. But I think it's important for us to start to get to know each other, develop trust in this space, and really talk about where we are within this fight for freedom and how we can get to where we need to be. I think that's enough for tonight, kinfolk. But loved chatting with you guys. This is all very important work. Please sit with this, think about this, accept this, and then let's get to work.